program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. So I'm your host, Sarah Higdon. This is Transform to Freedom. So yeah, sorry about yesterday, my usual time. I was hanging out by the pool, and then I just, I went home after that evening, and I really didn't feel good. So I wanted to make sure but I did want to get a stream in this week. So here we are. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna talk about some stuff, because obviously there's a lot of craziness kind of happening in the world of, I guess the pride world. Kind of before we get going though, if you haven't heard, Donald Trump was arrested today, waiting to be indicted on, I believe it's the mishandling of classified materials. It stems back to the raid on Mar-a-Lago a couple months ago. Really, I'm not going to talk too much about it. I do think that this is just like a political witch hunt. This is setting an unprecedented, standard. That we'll see what happens, because I think I do have a segment I'm going to talk about on Rumble that I'm not going to talk about on YouTube. Just talking about the president and a DDoS attack that happened against my employer, the Post Millennial, yesterday. As soon as we released some information, so we're going to talk about that, like I said, on Rumble after this stream. So we're going to keep it going over there, but it's really an interesting story. I just don't trust YouTube to allow me to say everything I want to say about that. So what we're going to get into is the first thing. And if you've been online and you've been kind of paying attention, you know that the White House hosted the largest Pride event ever held at the White House this past weekend. And it was really interesting because a lot of interesting stuff happened there. But the first thing that kind of came up was Joe Biden basically endorsing, sex changes for children. And then Joe Biden's giving some really interesting remarks as well right after that, which kind of contradicts what he said. So I am going to, let me scroll down. All right, here's the president's statements.
When families across the country face excruciating decisions to relocate to a different state to protect their child from dangerous anti-LGBTQ laws, we have to act. We have to act as a nation. We need to push back against the hundreds of callous and cynical bills and laws introduced in states targeting transgender children, terrifying families, and criminalizing doctors and nurses. These bills and laws attack the most basic values and freedoms we have as Americans. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. The right to be yourself, the right to make your own health decisions, the right to raise your own children.
So, really interesting. Yeah, he says the right to make your own healthcare decisions. So it really seems like he's saying that children have the right to make their own healthcare decisions. That's not how this works, Joe. It's really not. Children are not capable of consenting to those types of things. Saying that these bills are anti-LGBT is insane. If you guys remember last week, I have been lobbying in 2 states now for multiple bills across the country to ban the practice of, medicalizing children. It's not what we should be doing. We should be letting kids be kids. Let them grow up to where that, get them the mental health care that they need as they grow up, and then they can grow up and make those decisions for themselves. And apparently the First Lady agrees with me. So here's what she said on the issue.
We want our kids just to be kids, running around and, hey, eating too much sugar. To laugh with the friends that we wish we saw more often. To find solace in the arms of people who see us for who we are. To celebrate the beauty and the resilience of this community.
So a child who does not know how much sugar intake is good for them can make their own medical decisions? It's up to them to determine whether they are, capable, that they're actually, gender dysphoric. I don't think so. I don't really think so. The other thing that I kind of mentioned, if you saw my reel, I put out a reel for the Post Millennial this last weekend too. And I kind of mentioned that because Joe also says that the right to make, or right for parents to raise their own kids, right? So parents decide to raise their own kids, unless, of course, those parents are of Armenian descent and they've been fighting in California so that, against the LG, the indoctrination that's happening in schools, or they are of the Muslim faith and they're in Maryland, who has also been protesting to try to opt out of these like pride events that they're having at their schools. At this point, the LGBT community, and actually, no, I'm going to stop saying the LGBT community. It's not the LGBT community. It's the queer community. We're going to separate the LGBT and the queer community from each other. And I do want to point out how the administration decided to put, actually, I guess they might have broken flag code and put the progress flag right in the middle of the American flags, which is actually, I think it's supposed to be the American flag, and then other flags are supposed to be on the outside, so it's supposed to go in the middle. But look at how symbolic that is. The fact that the progress flag has that chevron, and the chevron's pointing down, and it's kind of moving through the rainbow. But then they put it in between two American flags, so it's completely separating the country. So it's like it's symbolic that the progress flag is, which again, so there's the black and the brown, which is supposed to stand for like people of color, which doesn't make sense to have on a pride flag in the first place. And then you have the colors of the trans community, which is pretty much symbolic of the queer community right now, cutting through the original LGBT, and it's dividing the country. So you put that flag in the middle of it, and I mean, just the optics of that is pretty symbolic in my opinion. It's kind of crazy. And like I said, I think that they broke flag code by doing that. But nowhere has the progress flag ever flown, for a nation. But it seems like that is, the left's flag. That is the flag that represents everything that the left stands for. Like I said, it's the queer community. It's the BLM community. It's basically their flag to represent, what is it? Critical theory. It's their flag that's representing critical theory. But it's symbolic. So what's really interesting though, and I saw somebody kind of comment on this one earlier because, again, if you haven't seen this bitch. Whew. So this apparently trans woman put out a reel on TikTok, was invited to the White House for this event. And let's just show this video real quick.
Welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life.
Yeah.
Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You are understood.
You are loved.
And you belong. One of the bravest and most inspiring people I've ever known. And
you're welcome.
Good folks.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President. It is an honor. Trans rights are human rights. Oh, it's a video. Oh, it's a video.
Gay news. Are we topless at the White House?
Yeah. Going topless at the White House. So I guess the White House actually condemned this, and this person is now banned. But actually, I would hope that all three of them are banned from the White House, not just because, you know, the naked breast at the White House, because it's a trans person, or that even if it was a biological female doing that, I would hope that they would get banned. But the thing is, I don't think even men should be like at the White House. Like, this is a professional event. Like, it kind of is disrespectful to do that, and you think that that's okay. It's insane. Thank you for the super chat, Robbie. So Robbie says, Sarah, I don't think they're smart enough to do that on purpose. You mean with the with the flag? I think you're right. I don't think that they realize how symbolic it was. But it's symbolic when you actually look at it that way. Like I said, I don't think they did it on purpose. I think that they thought that, oh, we're gonna hang the progress flag right in the middle, and we're gonna put 2 American flags on the outside. So that would be more appropriate, right? To have 2 American flags, then 1 American flag, and then 2 pride flags or whatnot. No, I think you're right, but it just does seem very symbolic the way that they do it. And honestly, somebody had to think about it like that. It is interesting because actually when you start to see a lot of this stuff, you start to see symbolism everywhere. So that's, I think that they do. Now, talking about this person again, though, yes, either way, it's inappropriate. I don't care who it is. If you're taking your shirt off at the White House, like, seems kind of inappropriate. Like, doesn't matter who you are. But what I want to know is, I don't know what it is about the queer community that wants to get naked all the time in public and like show people their voyeurism. That's all this is. It's like voyeurism. I was talking to somebody yesterday who I was hanging out at the pool with yesterday, working with them yesterday at the pool. And we were talking about this. It's like, I don't know what it is about going to pride events and stuff like that, that people just, they go to these events and it's like a place to show their kink. Now, straight people have kinks, gay people have kinks. Most people have different stuff that they like to do in the bedroom that might be considered, a kink. So I don't kink shame. But the problem is like, these events, it turns into like wanting to share your kink with the world. It makes absolutely no sense. And the other thing is, like, what is it about the queer community that people hold people in this community to such low standards, right? So this person at the White House thinks that they can do this because, they don't have any standards. it's not, I mean, like I said, this is a place that I would probably dress up to go. I mean, the White House is a place that you would normally dress up, be professional when you go there. And they think that this is okay. And a lot of people were giving them a pass. They got a pass for this because it's somehow empowering. Like it's empowering to the community or something like that. That's ridiculous. You know, so people like that, they just set everything backwards. But it is, I mean, like they celebrate pride and all this other stuff. And yet when they do that, they think that they're being empowering. Like it's not empowering to like have naked men dancing provocatively, like twerking. Like there was a video, I don't have it pulled up. There was a video of a dude who was like twerking and a mother standing there with her child laughing about it. Like this is supposed to be okay? Like you think that this is good? Like this is what is representative of the queer community? Like this is why I want to separate the queer community from the LGBT, because that's, I mean, LGBT people just want to live their lives like everybody else. Like we don't need like these parades and everything like that. It's just nonsense. I said on Timcast actually a couple weeks ago that, you know, I am so done with pride because it's just so taken over. Like there's no, like, what are we even celebrating anymore? And it's actually really interesting because you listen to that video where the president says, Happy Pride Day, Happy Pride Month, Happy Pride Year, and Happy Pride Life. Again, Happy Pride Year. So then why do we have a month? We've already talked about this. Like, it seems like there's representation everywhere. We have like every other day of the year, there's always something being, you know, celebrated in this name, or there's a holiday for whatever reason. But why? Like, this is like the least marginalized community in the world. The least. Until you start to look at stuff like this, where it's really interesting. Johns Hopkins University, if you guys saw this one, Johns Hopkins, their definitions changed recently. So their diversity, inclusion, and gender and sexuality resources in their LGBTQ guide. So if you look, it says lesbian is a quote unquote non-man attracted to non-men. It says, well, past definitions refer to lesbian as a woman who is emotionally, romantically, and or sexually attracted to other women. This definition includes non-binary people who may also identify with the label. So women are now just non-men. Like, that doesn't make sense. But what's really interesting, this is where the misogyny even still comes in today, because a gay man is a man who is emotionally, romantically, sexually affectionate, and relationally attracted to other men, or who identifies as a member of the gay community at times. Gay is used to refer to all people, regardless of gender, who have their primary sexual people of the same gender. So what's interesting is, so a gay man is a man that's attracted to men, but a lesbian is a non-man who's attracted to non-men, according to Johns Hopkins. It's like, you want to talk about like female erasure? Like, that's it. Like, that's it. And then it goes to say, like, what is, I mean, so then what's like pansexual? What's bisexual? I mean, if I'm bisexual, doesn't that make me a lesbian because I'm I'm attracted to non-men and men. It doesn't make sense. Like I said, it's yeah. So so that's why I mean it's like, hey, at least they admit now that there's only two genders. There's men and non-men. No, we're not doing that. Actually, I will say this is how you know we're kind of winning at this point, because I did just see this not long before I came on, about maybe a couple hours ago, that Johns Hopkins says it pulled its lesbian definition after the backlash. So that's good news, because it was really looking bad for a little bit. But that's the thing is, I do want to say that this Pride Month has been a white pill. Like last Pride Month was a complete black pill, and it seemed like last year's Pride Month is like when this entire year just like went crazy. And this year, it seems like we're getting back to some sanity. It seems like everything's kind of getting back to sanity. So Johns Hopkins, obviously they caved to the pressure to be, when they admitted that they were wrong in saying non-men. Oh, that's awesome. So Golden T says, Sarah, I'm raising a son who is 16. I'm constantly fighting social media. When I get him outside with sweaty work, he is a very different person. Thank you for your strength. Well, thank you. And you're right. What people don't realize, and I say this quite a bit, is social media is not real life. I think too many people are living on social media. This is what I see, especially when it comes to trans people. And people in that community, like the queer community as a whole, they think that their rights are being taken away. They think that people, like, they live in such a self-deprecating mindset because they think that the world hates them. They think that the world hates them. They are constantly inundated with all this stuff. Like they're trying, how many comments do I get a day that says, these people want to murder you. These people want you, killed. I get this stuff all the time in my comment section, especially on Twitter from the left. And I'm like, have you ever been outside? Have you ever actually touched grass? Have you ever went and actually met somebody, like actual people? I've never once encountered like true transphobic hate in real life. Like what I would say is true transphobic hate. Get misgendered, whatever. That's not hate. That's whatever. I've never actually, and it's never been intentional actually, usually either. So people are good people off the internet. And this is what's interesting is I commented on this maybe a month or so ago, that there is Twitter, for example. There's maybe 70, there's 70 million registered Twitter users in the United States. And that doesn't account for alt accounts or, so that doesn't account for alt accounts or, or like business accounts either. So that's just 70 million total accounts that are registered in the US. And almost everybody has probably an alt account that they have to do some stuff with, to see some stuff that they would normally not be able to see because they're blocked for whatever reason. Most people have alt accounts. So that 70 million is really, there are 333 million people in the United States. So that's a small percentage of how many people there actually are in the United States. So it's not a very representative sample of what people really are. It's not really representative at all. So that's what I mean when I say that Twitter is not real life. And how many of them are just troll accounts? They don't actually mean what they say. And they would, if they were on their main account, they wouldn't be actually saying a lot of this stuff. Because they know it's not popular. So some people just like to watch the world burn. So that's kind of what they do on there. 339 million. Okay, interesting. But you're right, David. It is a 24/7 psyops. Like, you have to understand that when you're on there. So like Golden T, when you talk about your son who's 16, this is why one of the reasons I think we should be keeping kids off of social media as much as possible. Honestly, I don't think kids should be having social media accounts. Like, I wouldn't even get my kid a smartphone. If I was a parent, I don't even think I would give my kid a smartphone until they're 18. I would give them a flip phone so they could call if there was an emergency and stuff like that. But I don't think I would keep them away from social media as long as possible, because it's a hellscape. So Courtney, yeah, your 15-year-old doesn't have social media. I don't blame you. I mean, that's, if you know Chloe Cole's story, that's how she kind of fell into this. It wasn't at school, because it really wasn't a big thing at that point. But she fell into it because of social media. It was Instagram. She was on Instagram at 11 years old, created a fake birthday, because it's 13 is the youngest age on there. So you just gotta be careful, because if it's a psyops and it creates so much, negativity in adults' brains, like we see, it's absolutely doing that to children. And these kids are freaking out because they actually believe that everything that's being said online, and they believe these activists online when they say that, trans people, the people want trans people dead and all this stuff. It's not true. Actually, so Robbie, you said, off topic, that picture of you and Josie and the chocolates was epic. Yeah. Actually, that Jeremy's chocolate, I know I'm promoting the Daily Wire here. Actually, the Daily Wire has been kicked off of YouTube, which is kind of, as much as I don't watch the Daily Wire, I think that they're going in the wrong direction. I think they're doing a lot of stuff for clicks and views. I don't think that they should be banned from YouTube. So they're like, YouTube's going back and retroactively like giving strikes on videos and stuff like that. So they're like at a war with YouTube right now as well. But yeah, so Jeremy's chocolates were pretty freaking good. It was good chocolate. I'm good with that. I loved, so when I was hanging out with Josie on Timcast, we had the picture. I actually, I don't think I can find the picture right now, but it was good. Tim had some in the studio, so I wanted to trigger some leftist, and so I had the he him ones with and the he him ones have nuts. Matt Walsh is still on YouTube. I didn't know that. I thought he actually had already moved all his stuff over to Twitter full time, which is one of the things is I'm looking at possibly moving everything. Well, I'm going to keep doing the YouTube stuff as long as I can, but I'm hoping that Elon gets some stuff on Twitter so that will be more of a primary place to put videos. I saw something the other day where he said that there was going to be, he was working about like ad sharing and everything like that. So it'll be good. Oh, Libertarian governor candidate will be on Timcast next month. Who is your candidate? Who is that? I do love. I mean, I love Tim. A lot of people. Tim was a great host for me, and I love going on the show, and the whole team over there is amazing. I can't say enough about the team over there. And if you haven't watched the after show, if you're a subscriber and you watch the after show, it's worth it. I think that the best conversations that we had were on the after show, and I wish that I could like have Tim just like publish the entire episode, like the after show episode with me on Twitter, because it was phenomenal. Like, we had the tough conversations about, we had the conversations about what are trans women in terms of biology and sexuality and like dating trans women. And I mean, I did say that, dating a trans woman is kind of its own thing. Like Blair White said, I think, Blair said it best. It's like its own sexuality. Interesting, but yeah. But moving to talk about how we're winning. I guess that's where I was going with this. Was we're winning the culture war. And like I said, last year it was such a drag because like literally like that's when like all the family friendly drag shows. Did my shit stop? Okay. That's when all the family friendly drag shows and all that stuff popped up. This year we have a person getting banned from the White House, and then we have Target and Bud Light. So we're gonna go right into the Target Bud Light update, where Joe Rogan actually talked about it on his show last week. So we'll play this clip.
Target lost billions of dollars because they tried to have this pride selection.
Oh yeah, gay mannequins.
Yeah, they had all these like pride children's shirts and
gay children.
Yeah, and then obviously the Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney. They've lost $20+ billion. You imagine you're just gonna send a can to some confused person that day 365 of womanhood, and you send that person a can with their face on, and your company loses $20 billion. That is wild, man. So we're seeing that now where we never saw that before, where people are going, enough,
right?
Enough. Stop shoving this down everybody's throat. When I go to Target, I don't want to see like tuck pants where you like they're designed to help you tuck your dick. Like, hey, that's not normal. And I don't want that right in front of everybody.
He's right. Like, honestly, though, I think the tuck bathing suit was a little bit interesting, because they made it seem like it was for kids, but it wasn't actually for kids. If it was for kids, it would have been I would have condemned it a lot more than I did. I still think I mean, there's specialty stores for like tuck stuff, so it kind of is weird. And like he's saying, it's like kind of like you're putting it in everybody's face. Let me see. So Kelly says, I got into a debate with my radical leftist brother. Did you see the story about the trans male inmate that was awarded $500,000 and a vaginoplasty? They also got moved to a women's prison. I did not see that. Was that here in the U.S.? Because I didn't see that happen. 500 grand. I didn't. And then you said, click. Okay. My brother said I misgendered, but I told him the term trans male is accepted because I heard it on your channel. You got to be careful, though, with that. So trans male, it would be more like I don't really care for the term, but I use it quite a bit, is trans identified male, because sometimes they use the term trans male to mean trans men. It's very different, but yeah, you just gotta be careful with that one. But yeah, so Bud Light, interesting enough. So where is it? They as of January 2nd, Bud Light has lost $27 billion in market cap. $27 billion. And Target, as of close on Friday, had lost $15 billion in market share. That is insane numbers right there. So think of, I mean, so Rogan's absolutely correct. Should you imagine, and a lot of the Target controversy stems from the Bud Light controversy. All these businesses are saying, like, as soon as they start getting a little bit of heat, they're like, we don't want to have a Bud Light situation. So that's like what Target's people said, like in internal emails. We don't want a Bud Light situation. They still got it. And actually, a lot of those people are now moving. Apparently, Walmart has seen the spike from that. So a lot of people are leaving Target and going over to Walmart as their alternative. But what's really interesting, and actually, hold on. I thought I had this pulled up. 1 second. So Bud Light, though, they decided to sponsor. Now they're seemingly like doubling down because they already lost their 100% like CEI score. And so that means that. So they lost their 100% CEI score, which is from the HRC. So Logic Rex says, if they are losing so much money, then why do they seem like businesses are still bending the knee to CEI and ESG lobbyists? Some are. Some aren't, though. Like, that's what I mean is now they're kind of going backwards. So it's interesting because Bud Light now, they lost that score and they're continuing to lose market cap. So it seems like they're just kind of like, okay, well, we better lean into the LGBT community so that we can get, at least get some money. Maybe they think that they're going to get some money from the queer community. Like they're going to start buying their brand because what I was going to look up is Bud Light is now sponsoring. I posted on my Twitter like a week ago, but Bud Light is now sponsoring an all ages drag show. I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't get it, but it's either they're looking, they're going to have to tank the brand. They're going to have to take this brand offline and do something with it because it's not rebounding. It's not rebounding at all. So I don't know who's still invested in Bud Light at this point or Anheuser-Busch. So if you have like, go check your mutual funds or whatever your funds are invested in, but make sure that you're not invested in Bud Light right now. But also, so one of the other big wins, I just saw again before going on air that Starbucks has been a well-known, like, more left-leaning. I think they were started in Seattle, Washington, so they're very much like a left-leaning organization. They've provided their insurance has always provided so Starbucks is interesting because Starbucks, just for a barista, they'll pay for your school. Like if you work there for so long, they'll pay for your college and they'll do a lot of stuff for you in that regard. They also pay for, trans healthcare. So their healthcare is pretty good when it comes to like trans people. If you were like, when I was searching in the trans community, like for information, there was a lot of information out there about how you go work just be a barista at Starbucks. And so for them to take down all their Pride gear already, not even halfway through June, and they're already taking their stuff down. Like I said, there's a backlash, and the needle is beginning to move in that direction. So it's gonna be real interesting going forward to see, what we get out of it. But we'll move on to the next kind of topic, and it kind of rolls into this as well. It's actually about California. Let's talk about California. I think so let me see. So Magnificent Devil says Starbucks story seems to be a rumor started by the union. The company came out today and said they hadn't changed their policy and reaffirmed their commitment. But what's interesting is I don't think that like all these companies this year, they haven't they don't have their logos, like their social medias. They took like all of them took their rainbow logos down. So they're not really, doing the whole pandering thing this year like they normally do in the past with the rainbow logos on their stuff. It's interesting. But yeah, California. So California, it's interesting because there's 2 bills in California right now. You want to talk about bad bills? Bills that are taking away parents' rights to make the decision for their children. Remember what Joe Biden said in the top of the hour? Well, here we go. New California bill aims to punish parents who refuse to affirm their children's gender. And of course, I can't say what I want to say about him on YouTube. Scott Wiener is I can't say it because it's that bad. He's authored the worst bills in the country that end up going into law in California. And this is just another example of it. This bill would use Child Protective Services to take away children from parents that don't affirm their kids. This is what we've been saying for so long. And it's finally here. They are now outright admitting that they want to take away children away from their parents for not affirming their gender. It's disgusting and insane. And if you did not see this video, it explains everything. If you don't believe me, they say it outright right here. AB 957 will take away their children, or they'll go to Child Protective Services. But this is such a bad precedent to set. So they only care about parental choice when it comes to making the decisions that they want you to make. So here.
So this particular bill adds the very important factor that affirming a child's gender identity is in their best interest, which is what your question is about. Why does it actually say that in an affirmative way? And it really is because if you have a 7-year-old who's talking about having a potential to say, being able to articulate that they believe that they are not the same gender as they are biologically, then it should be affirmed. And through care, it should be determined. And that's what we did with our own child. And that would give the ability for a parent who wasn't sure to affirm and get their child the care that they need to make that, so they can begin to articulate that determination. But by saying and rejecting it in wholesale, then you're essentially rejecting your child. And that is not in the best interest of a child. We should be affirming our children in every possible way and getting them whatever appropriate care they need, whether it's based on their gender, whether it's based on how their studies are in school. It doesn't matter. Our children should be affirmed. And this is saying that you have to include gender affirmation as a part of that.
Do you affirm your children when they're having an emotional breakdown? Do you affirm your child when they're throwing a tantrum in a store because they want a toy? Do you affirm your child because your 7-year-old says that they are not of the same sex, because they saw something on TV and they said, you know what? That's me. I don't think so. This gives children all the power over their parents. It takes away it takes away parents' rights. It takes away a parent's power to tell their child no. It takes away the parent's responsibility. And all it's going to do, like this is the overall plan, is to make it so that your kids belong to the state. They want to give your children agency, right? They want to give them power because they want control over your children. They want control over you. They want control over your children. And that's the way that they do it, is give them agency. And I'm not even going to mention, again, I don't think I can actually mention it on YouTube, what's really going on here when you talk about saying that children can consent to things under certain ages. We'll just leave it there. But I'll pop it up on the screen because you said it for me. Thank you, Kelly. That's exactly where I'm going with it. Yeah. I mean, Jen McMahon, you nailed it. Do they affirm their child not eating vegetables even when they're a parent? They know they should. Yeah. What about like healthy eating? If a child's hungry, do you just give them the food that they want, or do you give them the food that they need? Or what? I mean, what if your child is overweight because they eat too much? Do you affirm that body positivity in them? Even though you know that it could lead to, high rates of, heart issues later on. No. You teach your kids. You don't just affirm them. Slippery slope going on in California, and I'm not here for it. Hey, Forge. It's good to see you. But that's not it. That's not the only bill that's going on. The only thing that's happening in California. So now we have, mess that one up. They are changing the definition of fertility in California. Yes, Robbie, you're absolutely right. So I used to work in the adult industry. We call it that because it didn't involve children. And it seems like nowadays that they want to show children everything. Like I said, I was talking about earlier with the pride parades, with the man dancing naked basically in front of children. And if these were, straight biological women doing this stuff, like if it wasn't at a pride parade, so let's say if you took a child to a male strip club and they were doing the same thing, dressed exactly the same, would that be okay? No, that'd be against the law. So why is it okay to be done in public? Pisses me off. But yeah, so now California is also moving to provide surrogates to gay couples in the name of fertility inequality. So this bill, oh, there we go. Bill 729 redefines infertility. I know I wrote this in here somewhere. Where did I write that? Okay. Basically, it redefines infertility to be a status instead of a medical condition. Changing the definition of an infertility to a person's inability to reproduce either as an individual or with their partner without medical intervention, which would classify gay men as infertile, which would then allow them to basically require insurance companies to provide in vitro fertilization for them. It would require. Now, the bill does lay this out, and this is really what's interesting about this bill, because it requires employer provided insurance companies to provide this stuff. But it doesn't affect state sponsored. It doesn't sponsor the state sponsored medical insurance. So basically, they're going to raise the rates of all employer provided insurance because they're going to make everybody on these insurance companies pay for that, or on these insurance plans pay for these procedures. So again, like rates are going to go up and all that stuff. And then what's going to happen, it's going to destroy the private sector of insurance. And so I think that this is actually would it be? I mean, I'm going to say it's not a poison pill. That's not what I'm thinking of. It's a bill to get onto a social medical plan. It's basically a way to make insurance premiums so high for the private sector that they have to move into a socialized medical system. But yeah, it's basically commodifying the female body in the name of equity, because then gay men are now being covered for this. And literally the bill's author, Senator Carolyn Menjivar, said the bill will ensure that queer people or queer couples no longer have to pay more out of pocket to start families than non-queer families, she continued. This bill is critical to achieving lived equality for LGBTQ plus people, as well as advancing well-rounded, comprehensive health care for all Californians. Unless you're a poor woman who has to, unless you're a poor woman who has to sell their body to get, basically to be a surrogate, they'll, you sell your body, you'll be now being paid by the government. So instead of pushing, like, I think I would rather see them do something like push for adoption. Like maybe they pay for, maybe that they would help with adoption. Because this is, surrogacy is basically renting a woman's womb for, to have a child that shares the DNA of just one of the males in a relationship. So I've always kind of said I don't think that surrogacy should be illegal, because I think that what consenting adults do is up to them. Like, it's your body, your choice. But at the end of the day, I don't think surrogacy is a good thing. Okay? I don't. So I'm not an advocate for it. In fact, I don't really like it. I've changed my opinion on this quite a bit. I don't like surrogacy. But at the end of the day, it is, your body, your choice. But I think we should demonize it, and we shouldn't be promoting it as something, and we shouldn't be forcing insurance companies to pay for it. We have enough children that need to be adopted. So if you want children, you can go adopt them if you can't have them biologically. I mean, I don't know. It just makes it doesn't make sense. And yeah, so you talked about I saw you guys talking about the artificial wombs. I've kind of said that that's kind of what's coming. I knew that's kind of what's coming next anyways. I've talked about this before. I think because when they talk about, trans women wanting womb implants, I've actually said I think that the artificial wombs will come before they even need to do the trans implant. So most people won't be actually carrying children. It's going to be kind of a transhumanist future, and that's what's needed for a transhumanist future. That's what they want. They want they want transhumanism. I mean, if you're going to be stuck in a pod, you're not going to really be growing your own children. So they're going to need something like that to keep the population going. Jen McMahon says, like Shane Dawson and his partner are doing that right now. 2 fertilized eggs, 1 surrogate. Yeah, I mean, now this is what's really interesting. I think when I had Libby on last year, I know Libby's stance on surrogacy. Libby is completely against surrogacy, and she's changed my mind. She's helped me shift my opinion on surrogacy quite a bit, just having conversations with her. But when she was on, we were talking about, because Dave Rubin and his husband used surrogacy as well. So it's really interesting talking to conservatives, because they don't necessarily, they could be super upset about it and condemn their friend, or they can, think it's wrong, but they're still not gonna go after their friend on this. But yeah, Libby's got some strong opinions on it. And so, but like I said, it's valuable advice that she's giving. She's absolutely right. So, she's changed my mind on it. Can a straight guy offer stud services to lesbian couples? Actually, I mean, I don't know if there's a list for that, but that's what's interesting, because it really only does affect usually gay men, because a lesbian can usually carry a baby. So they would pay for the in vitro, or they could just, or there's other ways to do it. But it doesn't make sense. This is not something that the insurance company needs to be providing. No. Let's see. Okay. We're actually at the top of the hour. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, well, first of all, thank you all for joining. Thanks for the good conversation. Sorry for it being a day later. If you guys like Tuesdays, maybe we'll start doing more on Tuesdays. But yep, it's almost Timcast time. That's why I told at the beginning of my episode, I said I do my shows at 7 o'clock, because I don't want to run into Timcast. Because that'd be stupid. People want to see Tim. Tim got millions of followers, so maybe I can share an audience, But I am going to jump over to Rumble to talk about the DDoS attack on the post-millennial yesterday, and the reason why, and it has to do with the Biden investigation. So I don't want to say too much here on YouTube, just because I know it's YouTube. So again, if you're not going to join me over there, I thank y'all for joining. I thank y'all for joining, as always. It's good. Make sure you follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see y'all from YouTube next time. Let me see. Now I just got to figure out how to get out of this. I think I just click remove. Nope. I don't want to delete it on YouTube. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. 1 second. I think I can just go ahead and do this.